Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is Jeremy Stuart. I'm the director and co-producer of Class Dismissed, and I'm here with Dustin, my co-producer, and we're happy that you're joining us today. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here just talking about this project. This is, as far as we know, the world's first documentary devoted to homeschooling that's been made, and we've got a lot to share with you about the process of making the film.
And like Jeremy, I did a lot of research myself to find out if there was any feature-length movies about homeschooling, and found very little. I found a few, like 7-minute documentaries on YouTube and stuff. But when I saw Jeremy's trailer, I called him up and joined forces with him, and we've been at it for, I don't know, a couple of years.
Yeah. So the project actually started in August of 2010. But before we get to that, actually, let's just jump to the next slide here, and we'll just do a quick introduction to ourselves. So this is Jeremy Stuart speaking. That's me on the left there. I originate from England, and I've lived in this country for 25 years, and I've been in the film industry for about that long, mostly in Los Angeles and now also in the Bay Area. Primarily as an editor. This is my first documentary as a director. I'm also a homeschooling parent, as is my co-producer Dustin. So this is a project that's deeply personal to us both. So in my capacity in the film industry, I've been an editor for all kinds of people. I do a lot of work for Lucasfilm and National Geographic Channel. I've worked on documentaries, music videos, commercials, and many, many corporate clients. So I've got a lot of experience in this industry, and I'm very excited to be putting together this film, which I think is a very timely subject right now. So.
And I'm Dustin Woodard, and I kind of homeschooled myself at one point, and I wanted to make a movie, so I studied how to write for a year, and then I hired a film crew, and I made my first movie, and won a couple awards at small film festivals. And then I was thinking, well, what do I want my next project to be? And having recently started homeschooling my child, I thought, wow, the public perception, even my own perception, was really far off from what's happening in reality. So I started exploring whether or not a movie had been made, like I said earlier, and then that's when I discovered the work that Jeremy had started. And I also I make commercials for Lego, Hot Wheels, Sony, Dell, and I'm also a web marketer as my primary job. Let's go ahead and talk about that, how it started.
So the project began in August of 2010 at the HSC conference in Sacramento, California, which I had been attending with my wife and child for a few years. And we were just really, really interested in seeing what was happening in the world of homeschooling. And I started talking with another friend of mine and said, I don't think there's any information out there other than books about homeschooling. Why don't we make a movie about it? It seems like there needs to be a documentary on this subject. So I started doing some research and couldn't find anything out there, and figured, well, this is obviously a ripe time to start a project like this. The other reason I began it was partly in response to several movies that were about education at the time, one of which was Race to Nowhere, the other one was Waiting for Superman, and there's many others, The War on Kids and The Cartel, and I've seen all of the more recent educational films out there, and what struck me about watching those is that never once does anyone mention there being any alternatives to public school, so especially homeschooling. So I thought, okay, well, it seems to me that this is really a great time to make a documentary that's really going to look at homeschooling from all different angles. And also, the other reason that I wanted to make the film was I felt like the public's perception of what homeschooling is greatly out of line with the reality. I think that there's a lot of common misperceptions in the general public about who homeschools and why they choose to do it. And so I wanted to kind of set that record straight a little bit, because my experience was, we're choosing to homeschool not for religious reasons, and we're not hippies living off the grid. We're sort of average, everyday family who have chosen to educate our daughter outside of a traditional school system for reasons that make sense to us as a family. And I was meeting more and more and more of these families and realizing, there seems to be a really growing movement in this sort of secular movement of homeschooling And you know, this is a great opportunity to really kind of talk about that and kind of help other people in the general public think about it in a different way. So that's sort of how the project began. And let's see, we've been at it for almost 3 years now. And it began right there at the HSC conference, where I interviewed several of the keynote speakers that year, including Sandra Dodd and Linda Dobson, and Diane Flynn Keith was also at that first conference. So that sort of got the ball rolling. And then a little bit later on, I was contacted by Dustin, as he mentioned, and we sort of joined forces, and then the ball really started rolling more rapidly, and we really began in earnest to track down other experts around the country, long-time homeschooling and alternative education advocates from different places. Pat Ferenga, as you can see from the screen up there, is actually part of this conference this weekend too, and Jerry Mintz, and many others. So we've had a really interesting experience connecting with these people and getting their input on alternative education and homeschooling and other ways to learn outside of the traditional system.
So I'm going to go ahead and take you guys to a trailer. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may have not. So we're just going to go onto YouTube here.
School is about preparing kids for the real world, but then we don't let them get involved in the real world for the full time that they're in these institutions.
Education has become something that's a part of the government, something that we do as a nation rather than something we did as a community.
There's an assumption that schooling is providing an education, and that's not necessarily so.
In a world where I can pull out my smartphone and Google anything I want, I don't need to have a teacher telling me facts. What I need is a guide helping me to apply that knowledge. What's necessary is for people to start rethinking some of these words, like learning, because we associate learning with a schoolroom.
The idea that kids are this entire human being and are interacting with the world, not just the teacher in the classroom, is still new to so many adults.
The general public conceptualization of homeschooling is you break out a book and start lecturing to them and teaching them everything.
We are all born with a motivation to learn, and if we can just continue to keep that alive for kids, then the learning takes care of itself.
I think the biggest misconception is that homeschooling happens at home.
The schools have done a really good job of making families feel inadequate and that you're really not qualified to direct your child's education.
I feel like I'm pretty well prepared for me to come along my way.
I wish I was people to homeschool.
From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep, they learn.
Learning is like breathing. It feels so good when it's not forced.
If somebody asks me, hey, you want to learn about this, then I'll usually say yes.
We're all really obsessed. What did you do? How did you perform? What's your grade? Show me the work that you did.
Schooling is like teaching to the test, and education is learning because you want to know it. We're never out of school because we're never out of life.
I'm more confident that I could go out there and do what I feel passionate to do with my life.
So that was a teaser trailer. We put 3 teaser trailers out. It looks like from some of the chat comments we're getting here that some of you couldn't see that, or some of you could see it but not hear it. So there's a link that's been posted there. If you could check that out after the session, you can go and see that trailer along with 2 other trailers we did, along with also a bunch of different sneak peeks from some of the experts that we've interviewed. So please be sure to visit that when we're done with the session, and you can find out more information there too. So, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, when we first talked and when we were looking at getting grants for the movie, you know, the budget was $300,000 or something like that. And, you know, that's actually, that would be considered ultra low budget Hollywood flick. You know, low budget is still $1 million, $2 million to make a movie, which is hard to believe, but that's the reality of most films. And in fact, a lot of the ones that Jeremy mentioned earlier, I was looking at their budgets, and you know, a lot of them had $500,000, $2 million to make the movie. And some of them funded by Bill Gates. But anyway, so we decided we're going to push forward and use our skills and do this, even if we have to do it as cheap as possible. But one thing that's really helped us is the web itself, and we've really been reaching out and connecting with people and growing a Twitter and Facebook following. And then we launched an Indiegogo campaign first, and part of the reason was because we're sponsored by the San Francisco Film Society. Actually, do you want to talk about that a little, the Film Society?
Yeah, so I approached the San Francisco Film Society where I live, and they every year they sponsor about 200 documentary projects. And by sponsoring them, they enable the filmmakers to assume non-profit status, which enables us to actually apply for traditional filmmaking grants. You can't apply for a grant at all unless you have non-profit status. So we teamed up with them, and that was very helpful to us in applying for traditional grants. And also, Indiegogo is actually affiliated or was connected with the San Francisco Film Society, which made it easy for us to run a campaign on their platform and try to raise some funds. So we began with Indiegogo, and then later on we moved on to the Kickstarter platform more recently, and ran a very successful campaign there to help, raise production funds. And I want to say also that, this really has been a labor of love for both Dustin and I, and all the money, every dollar of it that we've raised has gone directly into production and directly onto the screen. So neither Dustin or I have received any payment at all. We've been working on it for 3 years, but that's the way we want it to be. We really want the money that we raise to go into the production and onto the screen. So, and we've been very happy with the support that we've been getting from the community at large.
And I really love the idea of a lot of people are pre-buying DVDs basically, but I love the idea of getting a lot of people involved. I think the Kickstarter campaign had almost 200 donors. And the great part about that is, now we've got 200 other people who are advocates of the film that'll help us down the road, maybe when we want to show it in a lot of different cities. So we raised over $20,000, and we've also gotten support from a couple organizations.
Yeah, the National Home Education Network came forward early on and donated $5,000 to really get the ball rolling, which was just a huge help when we needed it most. And then we also got support from the Oregon Home Education Network. So some fairly major kind of national organizations stepping up there to help us out, and we really appreciated that. My feeling all along has been I really wanted to make this a people-powered film. Obviously we have a sort of built-in audience with the homeschooling community or alternative education community already, and I wanted to reach out to them first and let them be a part of the project so that it's really a group effort and a grassroots effort, and it has been so far, and it's been really really incredible to see that. So,
all right, so I'm going to move us along. So you already saw the expert interviews. There's many more. I don't know, a couple dozen.
Yeah, there's more than are listed here, but these are the sort of main ones that you probably may have heard of. I would imagine most of these are fairly well known. And then also, let's go to the family.
Yep.
The other thing we've been doing is interviewing individual families in different parts of the country, and finding out about their process of homeschooling and what it means to them and so forth, to try to cover as much diversity as possible. One thing that we did, which was an amazing experience, was we traveled to Portland, Oregon, to a place called Village Home. The two photographs you see at the top there are both families that were part of this Village Home program in Portland. And what that is a home education resource center. So it started as a group of 2 or 3 families that got together who were homeschooling to kind of pool their resources, and they ended up building essentially this community around their ideas for education, and it's turned into a really vibrant center. I think they have something like 60 families enrolled now, or more than 60 families. I don't even know how many, but lots and lots and lots of kids who are choosing the curriculum that they want to learn. And what's fascinating is when we visited it, it looks a little bit like a school, except it runs nothing like one. They have classrooms and desks and lots of kids, but the kids are there because they're choosing to be there, and not because they're being told to be there by some administrator, and they're also choosing their own curriculums. So we were really blown away by this model. We think it's a really powerful model, and so Village Home will be a big part of the film in the long run.
Yeah, and it was there was mixed ages in the classrooms. They were doing Lego robotics and sometimes parents would even take classes with the kids too. It was really interesting, and the kids were all so friendly to come up and speak to us, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, and then the other thing, so the two photographs on the bottom there, the other thing we've been doing is trying to go out into the public and do quick interviews on the street, like man on the street type things, to get people's perceptions. You know, one of the things I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this session today was, you know, people's perceptions of homeschooling are so far off what the reality is. And so I wanted to kind of really prove that to myself and to the audience, and the way we did that was to go out into the streets and ask people, hey, you know, have you heard about homeschooling? What do you think about it? And it's amazing the responses that we got back. You know, everybody seems to have the same general view of what homeschooling is, and often it's really not matching what the families are doing, at least the families I know and the families that we've talked to, and that's been many of them. So that's very interesting to kind of really get that public perception.
So what's driving the entire story is we decided to cast a family and follow them through the process of newly homeschooling. And so we put out a call on the web, and I think we got about 100 responses. And you want to talk about the family that we found?
Yeah, it's true. We got about 100 responses from pretty much every state in America, from as far away as Alaska and Hawaii and everywhere in between. It was kind of amazing and overwhelming. And we read through all the responses very carefully, and we finally settled on this family in Los Angeles for a couple of reasons. I mean, the main one is that they met our criteria. We were looking for a family that was just about to start homeschooling, who had kids in school, who were unhappy with what was happening, who were looking to find alternative ways to educate them. So we found this wonderful family in Los Angeles, and these are pictures of them right here that you're looking at. And they had two girls in one of the best schools in Los Angeles. They actually moved to the neighborhood that they're in specifically for the school. It was rated one of the highest. And after 2 years, they realized, you know, this really isn't delivering what we were expecting, and they were very unhappy. And so they started thinking about alternatives, and homeschooling was one of them, and they didn't know what they were going to do. So it was perfect for us. We were there right at the beginning to film them leaving school and jumping into the world of homeschooling and alternative education. And we've been following them now for 1.5 years. Happy to say that we just finished our final shoot with them.
Earlier this month.
Earlier this month, yeah. So after 1.5 years of following their progress, and you know, they've been through some ups and downs and tried different things, and now they're finding their footing, and they're doing great. And it's been a really interesting process to follow them. So we're going to show you another little trailer. Hopefully now this technology will enable everyone to see it.
I've always really liked to learn, but school brought on a lot of stress, and I just felt like I was kind of failing as a student. She was so excited to learn when she was little, and I've been seeing it plummet.
Our kids just come home grumpy, overworked, and craziest amount of busy.
School's like something that I always dread going to, because we're going to be stuck in a classroom for 6 hours. There was no time to clean their room. I couldn't ask them to help me unload the dishwasher or vacuum the room. They were too busy. They literally were always doing schoolwork. My world revolved around school, and that was all that there was. It really made me start to think and question what we were doing, and made me wonder about what other alternatives there were. I just thought, I don't think we buy into this anymore. Finally, I hit my breaking point. I was like, I don't want to go to school anymore.
Many parents do not realize that they have options, and they don't even feel like they have a right to have much of a say in their children's education.
The very first thing you need to do is think outside the box of the school. Think outside the conventional notions of what learning is.
Times are changing. Schools are not. And parents want to know, well, what can I give my child? If the salvation of school is really just an empty promise, you know, what is it? And then they realize, me, my family, my community.
The idea that kids are this entire human being and are interacting with the world, not just the teacher in the classroom, is still new to so many adults.
The best way to have an impact in the direction of the education revolution is to go outside the system.
So there you go. That was an introduction to the family that we've been following for a year and a half. And for those of you that were still having technical difficulties there, please take time afterwards to click on the link. There's one posted there on the chat window that you can take a look at that afterwards at your own time. So, where are we now? Well, I'm happy to say we're 95% done with the filming, now that we've sort of completed our journey with the main family of the film. And we've done many, many interviews around the country. We're about 95% done. There's going to be a little bit more filming to do, just some pickup things here and there. But we're already into the editing process. As an editor, of course, that's what I do. That's what I'm trained in and have a lot of experience in. So I've been editing kind of all along and going through the footage and trying to shape the story. And it's coming together very well. I hope to have a rough cut by the end of the year, which means that by early next year sometime, I hope to have the finished film done and ready to go. And we're super excited about that.
So we thought we'd end with some ways that you can help if you're interested in the film. We have a couple websites, but homeschoolfilm.com is the main one for people that kind of know what homeschooling is, and then for the more general public, classdismissedmovie.com. And you can go on there and you can watch those trailers that you may not have seen yet. You could also follow us. We're on Facebook, of course, and Twitter. And then we're also taking volunteers. Check one of the last couple of blog posts, and you'll see a link for volunteer sign up. And what we hope to do with the volunteers is, a few different things, but help. What we're really finding is the homeschooling community is there's like lots of pockets of homeschoolers everywhere, but there's not like a lot of huge organizations where everybody goes and gets the news and that kind of thing. So, there's a lot of people, if there's a couple million kids homeschooling, there's definitely a lot of people that haven't heard about the film yet. Even a few we've noticed in the session today. So the volunteers are going to help us spread the word and kind of reach out to all the different groups and let them know about the film. And then eventually down the line, they may help us do screenings in their hometowns. That's one of the questions that a lot of people ask me is how are we going to distribute this and get this out there. The first thing we'll try to do is enter some film festivals and get it seen that way, which would be very exciting, and also get it into an audience outside of the sort of typical core audience, of the homeschooling or alternative education audience. The second thing we want to try to do, of course, is screenings, organize screenings in different cities around the country. There's a thing called forewalling, where you basically rent independent movie theater for the night and let everybody know and try to fill it and get people to see the film that way. Of course, DVDs will be available on the website, and eventually probably some streaming options as well. Of course, down the road, long term, we'd love to get it on Netflix and or through Amazon or someplace like that, so that as many people as possible can see the film. And right now, we've had a lot of global support. Actually, we've had donors from Germany, where homeschooling is illegal, and we have a lot of support in South Africa, which is interesting. Yeah, also England and New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. We've heard from lots of people in those countries as well. So I think this is a very important subject. I think it's a hot topic right now. I think there's a lot of people in the general public who are looking for alternatives, and I'm hoping that this film will answer some of their questions and give them the courage to kind of step out and try something different. I mean, one of the reasons we chose the idea of following a family was I felt if you can relate to a family and see their journey and what they did and what's working for them, then maybe you would have the courage to do so yourself. So that's kind of the idea behind that, is to really let people know, this isn't as hard as you think it is, especially in this day and age. So if it's not working for you and your kids, and you're looking for something else, then homeschooling might be worth looking at. It's definitely an option that works for a lot of people. It's not the only option, but it's definitely one of them and should really be considered. And that's kind of the message of the film. And we're still taking donations on the film as well. I just sent the link to the site. forget what the level is, but if you contribute over a certain amount, you'll get a copy of the DVD in the mail as well. So I'd like to open it up to questions now. If you'll use chat, or if the other moderator wants to jump in, I think he's already left, or maybe. Go ahead and take questions via chat. Actually, I might even turn on the audio if you guys want to ask questions with audio.
I think we can do that.
We'll try that. So hopefully, one question at a time. So you guys you should have audio turned on now, I think, and just speak in if you're set up for it. And then if not, use chat to ask a question. Looks like Peggy's got a question here. How many families of color did you contact and interview?
So far, only one. But I do have other people that I have on my list that I'd like to contact soon. As I said, there is a little bit of filming still to be done, and that's more local to where I live, and I have some families in mind for that.
Well, actually, so there was 2 families in Portland.
Oh, that's true.
And then you had one that was in the first trailer as well. So,
right.
At least 3 have been interviewed. 3 families. It looks like chat is going to be the best way to ask a question, so I'm going to turn audio off, and we'll just use chat.
Will you be distributing short video segments from the film or just the trailer? Well, yeah, we have released some sneak peeks on our YouTube channel. So again, we'll go ahead and post the link to that. But our YouTube channel has sneak peeks of many of the expert interviews that we've interviewed. And I like doing that, and people seem to respond very well to that. They want to hear a little bit from some of these folks. So as the movie progresses, we're probably going to be doing more of that. So stay tuned for that.
Did you? Is there a Pat Faringa clip on there?
There's not a Pat Faringa clip on there yet, but that will be coming soon. Sneak peeks, yeah, that's a great term.
There's another interesting thing is we have so many. I mean, I don't know how much footage we have, but it's a ton, and there's no way it's all going to fit into the movie. So we plan on releasing a bonus DVD for the people really interested in homeschooling, so they can watch all the expert interviews in full.
Yeah, there's a question here. There's an Afrocentric homeschooling movement, and it looks like it's not completed there. But yeah, I actually, initially when I first started the project, it was interesting. I heard about the first African-American unschooling conference, which we were planning on attending, and unfortunately the conference didn't happen. But I would have been very interested to go to that, and it seemed like a very exciting opportunity. But in the process of doing research, I also discovered that in Washington, D.C., there's a very large growing movement of African-American homeschoolers and unschoolers, which I also thought was very interesting. Unfortunately, I've not had an opportunity to really get over there and connect with any of those people, but I hope that we can. So that's good to know about.
And a lot of people ask us, like, why didn't you interview 3 families or 4 families, or follow 3 or 4 families? And like, obviously, budget-wise, that's nearly impossible to do. But the family really does draw the viewers in. We really want to educate the public and show people there's an option. So the family story really drives us through and kind of brings in expert interviews. And it seems to be working really well.
Mm-hmm. There's a question from Sarah. So how many working class families have you contacted or profiled? Well, pretty much everybody in that film is working class. I mean, as a lot of people know, especially those already doing this, homeschooling requires some sort of financial sacrifices. Usually one parent has to work and the other one has to stay home, or at least they have to shuffle their work schedule in such a way to make it possible. But I would say everybody that we've interviewed is a sort of standard working class average American family.
Yeah, we've had questions too, like people that have kids with special needs or prodigy. We've had a lot of like people with prodigy homeschoolers, but that's we really want to kind of show the the typical situation, and not a really rich family or a kid with a genius that can't be in a regular school. We really want to highlight just kind of the general movement of what's happening.
Right, right.
So I think we'll.
Yeah.
So I have a question here. Oh. Another cool thing about the family that we casted is they are, they're really close to the airport in LA, and Jeremy's in San Francisco, and I'm up in Seattle. So that's been a blessing in disguise, just being able to travel down there very quickly. Usually, we're being very budget conscious, so a lot, we'd go down there every month or so, and we would fly in Monday morning, film all day, spend the night, fly, and then film all day again, and then fly out that next night. So only, one hotel night, and crank in 2 full days of filming. We're just kind of watching the chat here. Some people are just making comments, and if anyone's got questions, feel free to shoot before we shut this session down.
Yeah, just to respond to Tom's comment here. Yes, generally speaking, the stay-at-home person is often the mom, but I have also interviewed a couple of single mothers as well. I mean, a lot of people say, well, this would never work for a single mom, but actually it does. I have two moms that we interviewed for the film that are in this, so it's not easy. It's kind of incredible that they can do it at all, but they're also homeschooling.
If you got a question, ask it down, or we're going to shut down in a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, a couple more minutes.
And anyone that joined us late, I'd love if you pop a little message in chat, saying whether or not you had heard of the movie before today.
This response here to Tom: how much do families spend on homeschooling? Everywhere from, well, as little or as much as you want to. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, we actually asked a lot of the families that, and we got a huge variety of answers. Well, it looks like we should probably wrap up. I just want to thank everybody for attending, and I hope a lot of people get to see this online in the archive video. Any last comments, Jeremy?
No, just to echo that. Thanks very much for joining us, and I hope you found that informative and entertaining and interesting enough to spread the word among your friends, and keep in touch with us. Find some way to connect with us there, and follow along, and hopefully in the spring we'll be able to release the full movie to you all. Thank you so much for your support.